Yes.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Great. So before we start, I would like to just start with a few words. First of all, thank you very much, Sheikh Nuruddeen, for being here. It means a lot to us, and I'm really looking forward for your talk. And to all of us, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. It's Ramadan in Indonesia at least, and in Malaysia and Australia, and hopefully you will get the news and wherever you are in the world as well. It's a real pleasure for us to have you attend our first Ramadan lockdown Alone Together talk. So before we start, let me share a little bit about how this came to be. Because we are actually just talking about 1.5 weeks ago before we came up with this. So we were a group of friends chatting about Ramadan this year. The mosques are closed, so we can't do the usual tarawih, the qiyam, halaqas, and the gatherings that people typically have during Ramadan. So we thought of why don't we arrange some talks, so some regular talks during Ramadan. So we quickly formed a team of very dedicated people and extremely skilled, mashallah, who joined us immediately on this initiative. And thanks to them, I would say we are now able to have this session and similar sessions throughout Ramadan every single day, inshallah. So I would say there's a rahmah in every situation. It's a very sad situation that the whole world is in right now. But Allah finds His way to help us overcome struggles. And even when we reach out to the speakers, I mean the speakers are typically shuyukh or imams that we knew from the past, and pretty much all of them just said, yes, I'm on, I want to be part of this. And 1.5 weeks later, we are here ready to kick off this talk. And this also led us to form the organization that we call Muslim Circle Organization, in short MCO. And MCO is actually derived from a movement control order, which we call the semi-lockdown in Malaysia. It's a preventive measure implemented in Malaysia during the COVID-19 outbreak. So we thought of coming up with a name that has something to do with MCO, hence Muslim Circle Organization. And our purpose is simply to bring knowledge and a positive view of Islam to the world, especially since we can do this online. So here we are, the first session with Sheikh Nuruddeen Lemu. And Nuruddeen Lemu is someone that pretty much all the organizers know pretty well, because Sheikh Nuruddeen Lemu has been in Malaysia a few times. And what we find really mesmerizing, us who knows him, is his ability to memorize a hadith and Quran verses, and the way he can connect them to the context we are living in with examples that we can all relate to. And that's why I'm personally super excited about having Sheikh Nuruddeen joining us today. And a little joke we have among ourselves, and Sheikh Nuruddeen, I'm not sure whether you know about that, but we have a little WhatsApp group that we call Nuru the Guru, and that we are still having. So that just shows how much we appreciate you and the knowledge that you are having, mashallah. For those of you who don't know Sheikh Nuruddeen, he's the Assistant Director of Dawah Institute in Nigeria. He's either attended or led several interfaith dialogues all over the world, which includes Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and you name it. He's also published works in the area of religion and interfaith understanding and dialogue. And last but not least, he's holding a master in resource management from the UK and a bachelor in agriculture from Nigeria. Without further ado, I would like to give the word to you, Sheikh Nuruddeen, and once again, thank you very much for attending. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Munir, for that and head swelling introduction. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wassalamu ala ashraf. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. I first knew this way. All waiting for things to go back to the way they were historically BC, before Corona. And if history is anything to go by, we will not go back to the same world. The world, the society does not go through this kind of shock to its economy, to its healthcare, to its identity, and recover and get back to how things were. New innovations, new ways of doing things would have developed, new friends would have developed. Unfortunately, new enemies, new weapons would have been developed. And so there are some problems that we will go back and find they are going to be worse than when we left them. Among those things would be, of course, what we see already happening, the rise of Islamophobia. Some countries, I think, would have boosted their healthcare systems and would make sure they have actually vaccinated themselves from such a threat in the near future of another pandemic. So I think people will learn a lot of good and bad happening. As people of faith, one of the things that religion tries to do for humanity is to give it various sets of shock absorbers. How to live in this world as representatives of Allah, as khalifas, vicegerents of Allah, standing for right, forbidding wrong, working to make the world a better place while we still can. We are advised by the Prophet to take advantage of 5 things before 5 things, of our health before our illness, our youth before our old age, our strength before weakness, I think wealth before poverty, life before death. In other words, take advantage of the things you can use while you can. Now, this comes in 2 ways. It's important for us to look at certain things that the environment presents to us that it didn't before. In a sense, this storm will pass, and that's because we call it a storm. After every hardship is relief. The job of a believer is to look for the higher in every situation. We believe ultimately whatever befalls a believer is good. It's always an opportunity. A problem is always a challenge. And the struggle is to ensure that our faith does not allow us to get distracted by any amount of negativity and hardship, that we should look for the silver lining in every situation, in the situation, in the context, but also in ourselves. Problems are temporary. This too shall pass. Inshallah, we shall overcome it. But the situation will reveal more of what we are, who we have become, but also hopefully help us in guiding us to see what we should do, what we should become, as we move into the future, but also as we deal with the present. The Quran in many places tells us that faith will be tested. Iman will be tested. In a number of verses in the Quran, one common one that we all, I think, should remember is where Allah says, سنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع. We shall test you with things of fear or anxiety and hunger. وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, and loss of property or wealth, loss of lives, and loss of the fruits of our labor, things we've worked for. And I think in the pandemic, we see all of these. We see anxiety and fear. We see hunger. We see loss of life. We see loss of property and wealth. We see loss of the fruits of our labor. But the verse goes on to say, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, that give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere. Not just sit back, but sabr includes resilience. Sabr includes taking advantage of the situation and not getting knocked down, not letting shut down to shut our goodness. It's not the end of us, it's the end of certain means, but our objectives continue. Serving Allah continues. We never end that. The maqasid or the higher objectives of Sharia don't end because of COVID-19. They just probably become rearranged. Some become more important and more critical. But the maqasid of Sharia, the enjoining right and forbidding wrong, accruing benefit, preventing harm, promoting and preserving faith, promoting and preserving life, promoting and preserving the intellect and education, promoting and preserving family, and the promotion and the preservation of wealth and property, these will forever continue. The playing ground and context will continue to change. Some of these contexts change gradually, some more rapidly, but the ends stay the same, the means differ, and the new means challenge us to take advantage of the situation, to carry on with the struggle, the jihad of doing things fi sabilillah. When we look at the rate of change, I think before COVID-19, we thought things were already changing at, whether you call it astronomical rates or intergalactic rates, things were already changing rapidly. And especially the intrusion into everyday life by technology. Social media was a big challenge, is a big challenge. Now we find over the last month or so, on the average globally, there's been a 70% surge in online activity. YouTube has had to reduce the resolution just of its videos just to accommodate more traffic. E-commerce has been on the rise. Streaming of videos has been on the rise. You know, it's just everything online. It's as if the world is moving online at a speed faster than we could ever have imagined. A lot of companies are now all looking at the drawing boards, and I'm sure over the next few weeks, we will see many of them coming online with whatever their new plans are. Islamic organizations such as the Dawah Institute is now working on just putting absolutely everything online and learning new skills and all of that. If you had told institutions to just try lockdown for a week or a month while we try moving more things online, everybody would have resisted. Schools would not have agreed to go online if they didn't have to. Now that some have tried online, some are hesitant on shutting everything online, even if things come back to normal. A lot of staff development can continue online. A lot of international speakers, teachers, trainers can now go online and do much more than before COVID-19. The pandemic seems to have accelerated our evolution of methods of doing things we have done before. And so the idea of going back to normal life, whatever that normal life will be, in the short term, of course, it's too soon to say what we will be going back to, but we probably have the biggest shock our generation has seen. But at the same time, the series of interconnected shocks to healthcare, to the economy, to religious practice and congregation, to education, to the family, to innovation and technology. While we look at all these as shocks, what probably will happen is we look back at 2020 as a major opportunity where a lot of good came out of it. When faith is tested, when we say Allah tests us with good and with bad, as the Quran says, with shar and with khair, when you suffer poverty or you notice a poor person, in one sense you say the poor person's faith is tested. Would the poor person remain ethical? Would the poor person respect the limits Allah has put on him? So in that sense, poverty is a test for the faith of the poor. However, the rich who observe that poverty, who notice that poverty, have their faith tested. Will they observe the injunctions of Allah to show compassion, to be helpful, to lift the downtrodden, to give more sadaqah, to be Allah's representatives, to be Allah's eyes on the ground? And I think when we see a situation where so much pain is caused, we have the opportunity not just to fulfill a purpose in life, to show compassion. The Prophet was described as a Nabiyur Rahmah, as a prophet of compassion, and he is our Uswatun Hasana. So not just do we have that opportunity to fulfill our purpose in life, but also the opportunity to reap the harvest of whatever faith we have, because the litmus test for Iman, for Taqwa, is in the expression and exhibition of compassion. If people who need compassion are observed and we do nothing, it's a sign that we have no Iman. Excuse me. What, however, Allah out of His Rahmah and his compassion, what he has done also is he has put the opportunity for joy in the opportunity to show compassion. Just as in the action of crime, you cause harm to others, but you create a guilt within yourself. In the commission of good, in the show of compassion, where you touch the pain of the time, you also release a joy in yourself that there is a reward to the doer of good in the doing of good. So while we see suffering around us, these are all opportunities on a dark night for us to shine, to be the stars when life looked grim and miserable, to look at the current situation as nothing much more than the biggest opportunity for us to be representatives of Allah. When you squeeze an orange, you expect orange juice. When COVID-19 squeezes a society, squeezes the world, squeezes nations, squeezes communities, squeezes families, and squeezes individuals, what is it that comes out? If you squeeze orange juice, you get orange. Sorry, you squeeze orange, you get orange juice. When COVID-19 squeezes us, does good come out? Or is it nasty? Do we just complain and show bitterness and apathy and greed and selfishness, self-centeredness? Do we play a blame game? Or do we look at it as an opportunity for the best of humanity to show what they have been made of? What all the prayers we have been involved in over the decades, what have they all helped us become? What have all the Ramadans that have passed, the fasting, what have they helped us grow into? Article on what's the name of the runner, Usain Bolt, and how he has made over 100 million pounds from running. But if you think of how much running is he being paid for, to sprint 100 meters just takes less than 10 seconds. And if you calculate all the 100-meter races that he's been involved in, it's not even up to 200 seconds. He's just run for a few minutes. But for the few minutes of running, he has made over 100 million pounds. However, it would be wrong to say he was being rewarded for his 2 minutes of running. It would be to look at the 20 years of running and practicing for which those seconds and minutes have really been the reason why the world has rewarded him. If we look at ourselves and we look at the current pandemic, I think this pandemic is our 100 meters. This is an opportunity like very other few we have had. We've always complained about lack of time. Now we have it. I think whatever faith, knowledge, wisdom, networking ability or abilities we have learned, this is when we have to see how to make the best use of it while this opportunity lasts. This is an opportunity that some will pass and some will fail. It's an opportunity to grow, be better, be useful. It's an opportunity to contribute in whatever we have become good at and whatever we can be better at using this opportunity. It's an opportunity to contribute to the best of our ability and to leave a legacy while we still can. This is not just an opportunity for us as individuals, but most importantly as individuals. But it's an opportunity for us to show what kind of families we really are in our neighborhood, and what kind of neighborhood we really are within the larger community. Some of us are opportune to live in more affluent neighborhoods, where the neighborhood and the small community is far, far wealthier than other communities. Just as we ask ourselves, how can I be more helpful to other individuals? Can our families stand out as the family that will always be remembered after COVID-19? Can we use the darkness of this night to shine our brightest? Can our neighborhoods get together and help others and be the stars during their darkness and their darkest hours? Can our nations be the most helpful to others, or do we turn nationalist? Can our nations be remembered as those that helped the most, those that cared, those who were not so preoccupied with their pain that they forgot others who pained even more? And so we find the need for us to look into our faith for the resources needed to show the greatest charity at home, but to see how good people can rise. Allah asks a question that we ask today. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ, and let there arise among you a people who have faith in Allah, يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, who call to good, who enjoin what is right, يَأْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْحَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, who enjoin right and forbid wrong. I think we have a great opportunity for creativity, to evolve our methods of enjoining right and forbidding wrong, to evolve our methods of communication and education, to look around with all the pain, and while others have their heads down, let us lift our heads and look for the new opportunities that this situation presents. To look at this time we have as an opportunity to develop new routines and new habits, to get closer to Allah and our family. This Ramadan is probably going to be a Ramadan like no other. And we have an opportunity, I believe, for so much rahmah in this month. We all have our best meals and dishes, our best colors and best clothing, our best friends. Ramadan should be our best month. But of all the Ramadans, how do we make this the best ever? The Ramadan we will look back to 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and recall how a wonderful opportunity it presented to us as individuals, as families, as communities, as nations, as an ummah, to be the best that Allah has put on this earth. This is an opportunity to learn new knowledge. So much knowledge is free. To learn new skills, to be more relevant now and in the future. To serve our families better. Even under normal circumstances, when the Sahaba asked Aisha, what exactly is the Prophet doing at home? He seems to spend so much time at home. And she said, he serves his family. Ramadan is a time for us to serve the family even better, to serve our neighborhood and neighbors and communities even better than we did before. To form new networks, new friends, to involve ourselves in things we didn't really worry about before. To recognize that if anyone is smiling out there, it's probably the environment. The other species on the brink of extinction. The next forest that was to be cleared and the species that lived there. Can we take advantage of this time to recalibrate our priorities, to look at the kind of rent we have been paying for living on planet Earth, and a free ride we all get every year to go around the sun on this spaceship called Earth. This is a time and an opportunity to share knowledge. We need to help others. What would inspire good action? What will enlighten in media, they say content is king. I think this is an opportunity for us to try and see how much useful material we can upload. Having said that, we need to have new balancing acts, to be aware of social media addiction and distractions, to be careful we don't just fall into gossiping and slander and just passing on fake news, just chatting all day and updating ourselves on what's going on at the cost of knowledge that would be useful to us and useful in making this Ramadan and this period the best ever we've had. We must not allow bad habits to come in. This is the time where we have time to do so much. We have opportunities to build the lives of so many going through so many difficulties. Many people will be losing their jobs. Some countries have had the highest unemployment rates over the last century, and it seems not to be getting better. Some countries have had to inject financial stimuli into their economy with trillions that they budgeted for other things. A lot of countries can't afford that. So a lot of people will lose their jobs if they don't adapt quickly, and if employers don't show enough compassion. And so while profit maximization has been a major objective of many businesses, I think it's important we look at our humanity more closely and see how we can maximize purpose, how job creation and keeping people on legitimate sources of income should be more important than maximizing profit to just shareholders. I'm not saying shareholders should not make profit, but I think they should not just make profit. They should also serve more. This is the time employers have the opportunity to build some of the strongest bonds they can ever build with their best employees. But this is also the time for employees to build their capacities for their employers, to crack their heads and ask themselves, what can I do from home? How can I contribute to my company from home? What skills do I need to go and develop in order to contribute to society through my organization, to the jobs of my colleagues through my work? Most of the jobs we are already involved in are what in Sharia are called fardu kifaya. They are essentials for the community because they prevent the community from going into darura and situations of necessity. And these have become very clear under COVID-19 and under this pandemic, because it makes it clear that even the people who clear garbage, if they don't clear the garbage for the next month, we will not just be dealing with COVID-19, we will be dealing with COVID-19 and cholera and typhoid and God knows what. And so we see our jobs as not just helping us live more comfortably, but in preventing poverty, in keeping the environment more stable, in preventing higher crime rates. So this is an opportunity where we don't just evolve as individuals, but we have the opportunity to be better employees and employers. That the test on the job market, the test on our businesses is also about creativity and how much do we really care about each other. The lockdown period is one where, especially as we move into Ramadan, it becomes one where we need to start developing routines. If this lockdown period would last for a month, what's my curriculum for personal growth and development? If the lockdown period was to last for 2 months, what's my curriculum? What's the self-discipline I need to have time for my social life, for my contribution to society, but very importantly, for my physical health? We don't want to all end up at the end of COVID-19 having gained a few more kilos, having weakened our health with poor diet, poor sleep, and no exercise. Can we create routines for our spiritual and intellectual growth? Time to play board games with the family, to read to each other, even a novel or a storybook, or if possible, something much more useful. We read stories to children. Can we read stories to our parents? We have many new opportunities to make this Ramadan and the COVID period a time when our parents, probably in their wildest dreams, never thought that their children would ever have more time for them. One of the greatest acts of charity we can do is goodness to the family, to parents, to children. But especially where we have aging parents that need more of our time, can we give them more of that time? Can we create more of that time? If you spoke with them just once a day, can you do twice a day? And if you live with them, what more can you do? During this COVID period, we have the opportunity to redefine ourselves, to use the early hours of the day before the hunger of fasting weakens us, to do the most productive things. So the time on social media, maybe we consider leaving that in the later part of the day when we're tired anyway, and more tired because we are fasting. I would like to suggest that we use this time to think for spouses, husbands, and wives to plan better routines for their children, for themselves, if it lasts for another month or 2 or 3 or more. If you go on walks, could you take a walk to a place where you have planted a tree or some flowers. And on all the other days, you have another good reason to take that 30-minute walk, where you take water to the plants you have sown or planted or transplanted. We'd like to talk about the future, but I think to a great extent, the future has already fast-tracked and come closer to us. Let's not just stay preparing for the future. Let's just say the future is here, and it has started with COVID-19, and we will probably not go back to everything the way it was. We need to learn the skills to survive now, and many of these skills will serve us better into the future. Let us take advantage of the COVID period, take advantage of this Ramadan, and make it the best days of our lives, and really turn it into a blessing, and help others look at it as an opportunity for good, for growth, for contribution, for increasing our contribution. Many wait until this time to give zakat. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he collected zakat sometimes for 2 years in advance from Khalid bin Walid and a couple of others. And so in the Hanafi school and a couple of other scholars, when there is such a need, if you can give zakat for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years in advance, why not? If this is the time your country is at its greatest period of need, take advantage of this time. Let's show the greatest rahmah coming out of this Ramadan. Let the world, not just Muslims, let the world, if you can't do the world, whatever, let them feel the brand this Ramadan as the Ramadan of Rahmah, as the Ramadan of the greatest compassion that Muslims showed each other and showed the world. And let every Ramadan envy this one. And we see what we do with the next Ramadan, but let's make this the best ever. I'd like to close by praying. Helps us, strengthens us to pass through this difficulty. He promises us inna ma'al usri yusra. After hardship is relief. We pray that we go through this hardship with the shock absorbers of faith, with the resilience we have built, and that we come out as better human beings. That we pass the test of this pandemic, and that we grow into better nations, a more united humanity, more united communities, more friendly neighborhoods, happier families, more fulfilled individuals. I pray that Allah continues to guide us on the straight path, that He forgives us for whatever time we have wasted, and that He gives us the energy, the insight to stick to the right path and be His best representatives. And may we get closer to Allah, and may Allah continue to guide us to what is best. I've spoken now for nearly an hour, just less than. I'll stop here, inshallah. and thank you for this opportunity. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam, Sheikh Nuruddeen. Thank you very much for the talk. I was thinking if you still have a few more minutes, if anyone have any questions, are you okay to answer some of the questions here?
Oh yes, inshallah.
Okay. So I did receive one question over WhatsApp that I can start with while the attendees are thinking about some questions. One of them was that we do say there's Allah's
Hello?
Rahman. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we do say there's Allah's Rahman in everything that happens. But how do you explain that to people who've lost either family members or their jobs due to the COVID-19 situation?
All right. Firstly, I think for those who go through difficulties, it's always important to remember it could have been worse. It's always important to remember you're not the only one. That we don't get so preoccupied with our pain as to forget there are others paining even more than we are. Otherwise, if you do the opposite and you look at it as I'm a victim, and you develop a victim mentality, and all you can do is whine and look at how bad things are, and you don't look at what else is still good, what else you still have, you will destroy yourself, whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God. The recipe that religion gives, and Islam definitely gives, is that we look at every bad situation as an opportunity to learn and to grow. It is when we lose things, we appreciate them even more. And it's not to say it's always your fault. When you get fired from a job, we need to ask ourselves, is that really the fault of my boss? Is that really the fault of God? Or should I have built my own capabilities and capacities? Should we look in the mirror and say, I've learned a lesson that inshallah will not repeat itself. I made myself dispensable in my industry. It is true, a lot of businesses are closing down, but this is not the first time businesses have closed down. This is a time when many businesses have closed down at the same time. But we will survive. We will recover. As we recover from illnesses or flu or different illnesses, some will suffer things that are like cancer. They will not recover. But the question will still be, how did they manage the time they were given by Allah? If your business never grows again, you stop and ask yourself, did you do the best you could with what you had while you could? But this is not just a test for those who are on the receiving side, as we said earlier, for employers, for governments, for leaders. What are you going to do about your biggest job creators? To allow them to go down? Or is this the time when businesses should help each other? You know, when we see countries like Cuba sending doctors to countries like Italy to give them a hand, when we see countries like Germany having plane loads of patients from Italy being brought into Germany because they have more hospital beds and facilities, when we see countries helping each other, we see another side of humanity, of new alliances forming that after COVID-19 would be appreciated. So it is true, we lose loved ones, but nobody was meant to live on earth forever. We're going to lose loved ones anyway. It's going to happen eventually. It hurts, but that is also a test of the faith of others to give comfort, to help the bereaved, to help those who are hurting. And as you help those who are in pain, you get to fulfill part of your purpose. We don't know who goes first, but we all know nobody leaves earth alive. Nobody leaves this. This is not Jannah. Everybody leaves eventually, and everybody is somebody's loved one. So it's just to accept that reality that this happens. It will happen. But again, this is the time when those faithful to Allah realize this is an opportunity for them to show resilience, but to overcome their resilience, to overcome just managing it and give comfort. It is people who have lost parents in the past that actually have the opportunity to give the greatest comfort to those who are losing their parents now. You who have lost a parent before have the best emotional qualification to tell someone else, Insha'Allah, it will be okay. You are believable. But for those who have not lost anyone, and it's the first time you are going through it, you realize it is those who have gone through it that have the ability to empathize. So yes, it is hard, but this is when we should recalibrate, ensure our compasses are really well polarized and are facing true north, that we don't lose our way, that we don't waver in our faith and in our resolve to grow. So yes, this is a time that is difficult, but through difficulty comes growth. And if we look at the episodes in human history, after all major catastrophes, as painful as they were, we find new inventions, new medicines, new systems of doing things, new alliances. So it is true, it is not nice, it is not comfortable, but one thing we are promised by Allah is that whoever suffers the hurt and pain of even a thorn pricking their foot, they get compensated by Allah for that pain. So whatever pain somebody is going through, Allah promises compensation. And if we look at some of the kind of equations that we have been given by the Prophet ﷺ, that if you die in a fire, the pain of that is one for which you are. If you lose a child, in fact, in one, it is a respiratory illness, like COVID-19. In another hadith, whoever dies because they stayed in a place with a plague, they die the death of a martyr and they go to paradise. So we realize that if we look at the problem of pain and suffering, just with the short time span of this world, it is usually not enough to see the rahmah of Allah. However, when we look at it from the time span of this world and in the hereafter, when you add to that equation the factor of the hereafter, then we see the hadith of the Prophet where he says on the day of judgment, people prayed to Allah for relief and Allah didn't give them that relief. They prayed for this and that and their prayers were not answered. But instead, Allah compensates them with reward for every unanswered prayer. So much so that the reward for each unanswered prayer is so valuable that we would even have wished that Allah didn't answer any of our prayers, that we, like, I'd rather the compensation. I remember asking my kids, if I were to prick you with a pin on your hand how much money would you take in compensation? And they thought, and one of them said, oh, I'll take what was actually equivalent to $5. And I said, okay, how much would you take in compensation for 2 pricks? And it's interesting how we measure the limited pain we go through in this world. But Allah tells us He will compensate us in such a way that we would actually wish that that pain was not relieved. We weren't relieved of that pain. So in answer to the question, how do we see Allah's rahmah? Allah's rahmah is for those who have the patience and the faith that after hardship is relief, and after all the hardship of this world is relief. So unfortunately, it is for a more empirical, measurable way of seeing Allah's rahmah, we have to wait for the hereafter. But that is, of course, if you believe in the hereafter. If you don't believe in the hereafter, then of course you can say it's wasted suffering. But we don't believe any suffering is a waste. Wallahu alam.
Alhamdulillah, thanks for the answer. I definitely have something to tell my son after this. He has a lot of unanswered du'as about getting more cars and toys, and so inshallah he'll be rewarded on Judgment Day, inshallah. So Sheikh, we have a few more questions, but I don't want to hold you up if you have other plans. How many more minutes do you have?
Go ahead. We have up to 30 minutes, I think.
Inshallah, perfect. So the next question is from Yasser Yusuf from Malaysia. So he's asking whether you have any guidance on how we can be more productive during Ramadan, especially since we don't have the community activities to encourage each other and to take us along with the flow.
I think what we are noticing now, Brother Yasser, is new ways the community is adapting to form new online communities, new friends. Inshallah, the time will come where we can physically meet, but it's to take advantage of the current situation and make the best out of it. I think we will have more online communities, we will have more online webinars such as this, and many of these, I think, while we may not be able to donate cash and be physically involved in helping in every way, we can donate towards others who are doing these things, but also look inwards and say, instead of preoccupying myself with the outside world this Ramadan, how can I look more inwards? How can I look more towards the family, towards the children, towards myself? Ramadan usually is the time for more introspection. So I think while we would want to connect, we find at the end of Ramadan is the period of i'tikaf, of seclusion. Can we start practicing some level of seclusion to have more time, you know, what they call me time, just me and my Creator? Can I have more of that time? And if I can't have it because of other obligations, can I spread it across the month? So yes, there are many things we can't do, but I think more opportunities and other opportunities already are around us, especially those who have families to take care of, or neighbors who definitely would appreciate some cooking from us from time to time, some gifts from us from time to time, relationships which we probably never cared to build, neighbors we've just said hi to, if at all. I think this is an opportunity to build bridges that would be very useful, not just after Ramadan, but more importantly, even after the COVID period. So I think there's a lot of things we can do within ourselves, our homes, our families, and the neighborhood, even if we can't do the more distant good to distant people. Take care of plant something. Any insect that benefits, that even rests on your leaf, is a source of reward. And you are contributing more oxygen. You are contributing, you know, to something that will eventually eat the plant or eat the leaves of the plant. I think it's time to take care of things. I'm not a big advocate of pets in cages or any of those, but I think if you have birds around the house, let the birds know your house is a house of rahmah. So I think we can try and look more closely, but family and self, I think, something we should take serious advantage of during this Ramadan. Allahu alam.
Then there was another question. So you did mention that we should serve others. So the thing is, I still remember you gave me a great answer some years back about work, because many people work within areas like sales, HR, IT, etc., where they see themselves more like serving their company rather than serving humanity, by just doing their normal jobs. Would that be part of ibadah, or are we really just serving our bosses?
I think a lot depends on the intention with which you do things. If you, the Prophet ﷺ said, even when you put a morsel of food out of love into the mouth of your wife, you get a reward. Even having sexual relations where you are benefiting, but it is increasing the love between you, you have a reward. It's an act of ibadah in the sense that it is the kind of thing Allah likes us to do. It is what is good for us. And so when we look at the job about serving your boss, yes, you are serving your boss, but you are serving your boss in areas of a common interest. You are also serving your family by bringing a legitimate source of income. And the Prophet ﷺ said, of everything that you can feed yourself with, there's nothing more wholesome, more nourishing, more fulfilling than what you earned from your own labor. If we look at the professions you've mentioned, like sales, IT, HR, they play complementary roles to the running of organizations. The organization cannot run without them. And if the organization doesn't run, how many families are run down? It is true, sometimes the distance between the guy who is in IT, probably somewhere in the basement, who is not seen by anybody and not really appreciated, he or she feels, I'm not seen, I'm not recognized. But I'm sure a leaf on a big tree feels something similar. How valuable am I to this tree and to the fruit and to all that trees do for the planet in keeping it alive and ensuring all animals have oxygen and plants are contributing? Every leaf can look and belittle its contribution and say, I'm nothing. However, you look at yourself as part of a whole and you ask yourself, am I doing my best? And if you do that with the intention of serving your family while serving humanity, what could be better than a good action where you benefit in this world, but you benefit others too, which is also a benefit for you in the hereafter? As haja, as needs, or even darura. These professions are given terminology as needs or necessities. And I think we see, so I think it's really to look again at your job as not just a job I'm serving my boss, but a means of taking care of my family, providing services for others, improving the lives of others, improving the number or increasing the number of wealthy people who can give zakat and who can give sadaqah. So if you are making millionaires turning them into billionaires, and through that we are able to increase the amount of tax we have, increase the amount of charity donations we can get, alhamdulillah, we do. Why? People people finally die, and the inheritance gets divided, and the wealth trickles down. It gets distributed. So at the end of the day, even if somebody who you helped became a miser, at the end of the day, the tree falls and others benefit from it in one way or the other. So I think the key thing is intention and ensuring that you are doing it for a goodly purpose. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu feek. There's only one more question, which is, I don't think it's a name, but how can we keep istiqamah with all of the trials from Allah Ta'ala? Sometimes our faith is not connected to Allah.
Oh yes. Generally, scholars describe faith as something that rises and falls, just like the seasons, just like the sunrise and sunset. Times we feel strong, times we feel weak. Times our willpower is on our side, and times that it is against us. But this is human. This is human. Like financial graphs and markets, it goes up and comes down. But what we want is that the average is a steady rise. That, day in, day out, it's up and down. But year in, year out, let us continue to rise. The Prophet ﷺ said in one hadith, when I ask you to do something, do the best of it, or I tell you, I give you something, or I ask you to do something, do the best you can. Allah doesn't place a burden of responsibility upon us that is greater than what we can bear. And I think we get a hint of this in the kind of things that we do, for which Allah forgives the wrongs that we do. You get somebody in a hadith who killed 99 people and finally made it 100, and hadn't gotten to do anything good, but just had in his heart the desire to be better, to change, to reform, to repent. And that was enough for Allah to forgive him all his sins. Of the prostitute, as terrible as zina is, but she just gives water to a dog, and Allah forgives her all her past sins. So what we want is just sincerity in striving and struggling and being better. There are times when we don't feel like praying, we don't feel like doing this, and we don't feel like reading Quran, we don't feel like doing this or that. But our job is to recognize that, well, sometimes we don't feel like it, and sometimes we do feel like it. But let's not allow ourselves to get out of the habit of it. And so if your heart can't submit, then let your body submit. If you feel my heart is not in this prayer, let at least your body be in prayer. And inshallah, your heart will join, your mind will join. So while things may be difficult, we may feel embarrassed, we may feel guilty, we never lose hope. That is one of the things where, as pessimistic as we may be about any situation, we never lose hope of Allah's rahmah. And so Allah, talking even to people who have done all the wrongs they could imagine, Allah says, Ya ibadi alladhina asrafu ala anfusahum. Those my servants who have transgressed in the doing of wrong and wrong themselves, Allah says, La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not despair from Allah's mercy. Do not lose hope of Allah's rahmah. Inna Allaha yaghfiru dhunuba jami'an. Allah forgives all sins. Innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Because that's what He is, the forgiver of sins, the most forgiving, the most merciful. We remember that the name Iblis actually comes from the root word ablasa, to give up, to lose hope, to despair. As Muslims, as people of faith, actually of any religion, but as Muslims in particular, we never lose hope of Allah's rahmah. However bad we have been, we remember the hadith where someone who was a tyrant, a cruel person, after all the wrong they did, at the moment he realized death had come, he had remorse, he regretted, and he asked his family, you know, when I die, burn me up, you know, dispose of me in a tree in a way in which I can't be brought back to Allah. But just because of his regret, his consciousness that he would return, his remorse, his recognition of the wrong he did, the Prophet tells us this person is raised on the day of judgment and ultimately Allah forgives him. So I think istiqamah and standing, we do the best we can. And with others, Allah does you with what you can do. And are you doing your best? Of course, we seek inspiration from those who have gone ahead of us, from those who do better, from prophets, from people who are better than us. But we know Allah will judge us based on our best. And, you know, while you don't say, okay, I've also fed a dog, I've done my bit. You know, if you can do more than that, you do more than that. And you don't say like, listen, you know what, I've never killed a person, let alone 100 people. We never take Allah for granted. We never belittle wrongdoing. We try and avoid every wrong we can. But we know however bad you have been, inshallah, Allah is forgiving and He loves those who turn to Him in forgiveness. Inshallah, it's khair. And that's life. We learn about ourselves too in the process. Wallahu alam.
Barakallahu fiqh. So both the questioners are thanking you, and especially the second one is saying, mashallah, jazakallahu khair. He or she is now feeling much more calm. So thank you for the answer. There are no more questions. So we are done. But for those of you who still want to stay, because I can see that we know quite a few of you, if you want to stay and hang out a little bit and have a Zoom gathering, please feel free. I'll turn on your mics. But for the rest of you, barakallahu fiqh for joining this session. If you're interested in joining all the other sessions, there will be sessions every single day during Ramadan. Follow our Facebook page so you can see who the next speakers are. And for you, Sheikh Nuruddeen, thank you so much for helping out with this and making our Ramadan more meaningful. Because I know that I would miss these sessions for sure. Staying at home and praying with my family is lovely, but what I do miss this connection with shuyukh out there with much more knowledge than I have for now, for sure. So barakallahu fiqh. Thank you, Sheikh.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Jazakumullahu khairan. And Ramadan Kareem.
Yeah, Ramadan Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.